The rain hammered against Marcus Chen's windshield as he navigated the winding mountain road back to his research station. Lightning split the darkness, illuminating the towering pines that lined the narrow asphalt. He should have left the observatory hours ago, but the anomalous readings from the deep space array had kept him glued to his monitors well past midnight. As a xenobiologist working for the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence Institute, Marcus had spent the better part of 5 years analyzing radio signals from distant galaxies. Most nights yielded nothing more than cosmic background radiation and the occasional pulsar. Tonight had been different. The signals weren't random electromagnetic noise. They contained patterns, mathematical sequences that seemed almost deliberate. A brilliant flash of light suddenly erupted overhead, far too close to be lightning. Marcus slammed on the brakes as something large crashed through the canopy of trees ahead, sending branches and debris cascading across the road. His heart pounded as he grabbed the emergency flashlight for his glove compartment and stepped out into the storm. The acrid smell of burning metal and ozone filled the air. Through the driving rain, Marcus could make out the twisted remains of what appeared to be some kind of vehicle embedded in the hillside. But this wasn't any aircraft he recognized. The hull gleamed with an iridescent quality that seemed to shift colors even in the dim light of his flashlight. Strange symbols were etched along its surface, pulsing with a faint blue luminescence. Marcus approached cautiously, his scientific mind warring with basic survival instinct. The craft was roughly the size of a small jet, but its design defied conventional aerodynamics. Organic curves flowed seamlessly into angular panels, creating a form that looked almost grown rather than built. A low moan emanated from within the wreckage. Without hesitation, Marcus climbed over the debris field and peered through a jagged opening in the hull. Inside, illuminated by the soft glow of damaged control panels, he saw her. The woman was unconscious, suspended by some kind of restraint system that had partially deployed during the crash. Her features were undeniably human. High cheekbones, full lips, and long dark hair that cascaded over her shoulders. But there were subtle differences that made Marcus's breath catch in his throat. Her skin had a faint luminescent quality, and her ears tapered to delicate points. Most striking of all were the thin, intricate patterns that traced along her exposed arms like living tattoos, pulsing with the same blue light as the craft symbols. She was injured. A deep gash across her forehead leaked what appeared to be silver-tinted blood, and her left arm hung at an awkward angle. Marcus didn't hesitate. Whatever she was, wherever she'd come from, she needed help. "Can you hear me?" he called out as he carefully maneuvered through the twisted metal. "I'm going to get you out of there." The woman's eyes fluttered open, revealing irises that shifted between deep violet and electric blue. When her gaze focused on Marcus, he saw a flicker of what might have been recognition, followed quickly by confusion and pain. She spoke, her voice melodic despite her obvious distress. The words were in no language Marcus recognized, but there was an urgency to them that transcended the language barrier. She was trying to warn him about something. "It's okay," Marcus said, working to free her from the restraint system. "I'm here to help. My name is Marcus. I'm going to get you somewhere safe." As his hands made contact with the alien restraints, they responded to his touch, retracting with a soft hiss. The technology was far beyond anything he'd ever encountered, yet it seemed to recognize him as friendly. The woman slumped forward, and Marcus caught her before she could fall. She was lighter than he'd expected, and her skin radiated a gentle warmth that seemed to ease the chill from a mountain air. As he lifted her from the wreckage, she pressed something into his palm, a small, crystalline device that pulsed with internal light. "Thank you," she whispered in accented but clear English, and Marcus realized with a start that she'd been learning his language just from their brief interaction. Her adaptation was impossibly fast, beyond what any human could achieve. Getting her to his truck proved challenging with the storm still raging, but Marcus managed to navigate the debris field while supporting her weight. She drifted in and out of consciousness during the drive back to his research station, occasionally murmuring in her alien tongue or gripping his arm with surprising strength when a vehicle hit a particularly rough patch of road. The research station was a modest facility nestled in a valley between two peaks, designed to house a small team of scientists studying atmospheric phenomena and deep space communications. At this hour, Marcus was the only one there, which was probably for the best. Explaining an injured alien to his colleagues would have raised complications he wasn't prepared to handle. He helped her into the station's small medical bay, a room equipped with basic first aid supplies, and a diagnostic scanner used primarily for treating altitude sickness and minor injuries. As he began examining her wounds, the woman watched him with those shifting eyes, studying his every movement with an intensity that made him self-conscious. "What's your name?" Marcus asked as he carefully cleaned the gash on her forehead. The silver blood was unlike anything in his textbooks, but it seemed to respond to standard antiseptic. "Zara," she replied, her pronunciation of human sounds becoming more natural with each word she spoke. "I am called Zara." "That's a beautiful name." "Zara, I need to set your arm. This is going to hurt." She nodded, gripping the edge of the examination table with her good hand. As Marcus gently manipulated the bone back into alignment, he was amazed by her stoicism. Despite obvious pain, she made no sound beyond a sharp intake of breath. While he worked, Marcus found himself stealing glances at the intricate patterns on her skin. Up close, he could see that they weren't tattoos at all, but rather some kind of subcutaneous network that pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. The patterns were incredibly complex, forming geometric designs that seemed to shift and flow across her arms and what he could see of her neck. "Those markings," he said as he applied a splint to her arm, "what are they?" Zara looked down at her arms, then back at Marcus. "Symbiont network," she said carefully, as if testing the English words. "Connection to ship, to others of my kind. Damaged now." The implications sent a chill down Marcus's spine. If these patterns were some kind of biological communication system, and they were damaged, that might explain why her craft had crashed. It also meant there were others out there, others who might be looking for her. "Are they coming for you?" he asked. "Your people, I mean. Do they know where you are?" Zara's expression grew troubled. "Not my people who hunt me," she said, her English becoming more fluent by the moment as her mind processed the language patterns. "Others. Dangerous others. I came to warn, to seek help." "Warn about what?" Before she could answer, every electronic device in the medical bay suddenly activated. The diagnostic scanner, the computer terminal, even the emergency radio. All of them flickered to life simultaneously, their screens displaying cascading streams of the same symbols Marcus had seen on her ship. Zara's eyes went wide with alarm. "They found me," she whispered. "The hegemony. We must go. Now." Outside, the storm had suddenly ceased, leaving an unnatural silence that made Marcus's skin crawl. Through the medical bay's small window, he could see lights in the sky. Not stars, but geometric patterns of illumination that moved with deliberate purpose. "Who is the hegemony?" Marcus asked, helping Zara to her feet despite her protest that they should flee immediately. "Conquerors," she said, leaning heavily against him as they made their way toward the station's exit. "They consume worlds, enslave species. My people discovered their fleet moving toward your solar system. I was sent to make contact, to warn Earth." The pieces began falling into place in Marcus's mind. The anomalous signals he'd been detecting, the mathematical patterns in the radio transmissions, they hadn't been random deep space phenomena. They'd been reconnaissance signals from an invasion fleet. "But your ship crashed," Marcus said. The warning never reached anyone official. Zara stopped walking and turned to face him, her luminescent eyes blazing with determination. "No," she said. "Ship did not crash. I was shot down by hegemony scouts. They know I reached Earth, but they do not know if I completed mission." The lights outside were getting brighter, and Marcus could hear a low humming that seemed to vibrate through the very foundations of the research station. Whatever was coming, they were running out of time. "My people can help," Zara continued, pulling the crystalline device from Marcus's pocket, where he'd forgotten he'd placed it. But only if warning reaches your governments, your military. This device contains proof, tactical information about hegemony weaknesses. Marcus looked at the crystal, then back at Zara's desperate face. His life as a simple researcher studying radio signals had just become infinitely more complicated. The woman he'd thought he was rescuing was actually trying to save his entire planet. "How long do we have?" he asked. "Hegemony main fleet is still weeks away," Zara said. "But advanced scouts are here now. They will try to silence me before I can complete warning." The humming outside grew louder, and through the windows, Marcus could see sleek, predatory shapes descending from the night sky. They moved with an efficiency that spoke of advanced technology and hostile intent. The research station's emergency lighting suddenly activated, bathing everything in red warning light. "The vehicles," Marcus said, pulling Zara toward the station's garage. "My truck might not be fast enough, but we have an emergency helicopter for medical evacuations." As they made their way through the darkened corridors, Zara stumbled, her injured state making rapid movement difficult. Marcus could see the strain on her face as she pushed through pain that would have incapacitated most humans. Whatever her species was, they possessed remarkable resilience. "Marcus," she said as they reached the garage door, "you must understand. If hegemony captures us, they will not simply kill us. They will extract everything I know about Earth's defenses, your technology, your weaknesses. Your world will fall without chance of resistance." The weight of responsibility settled on Marcus's shoulders like a physical burden. He was just one man, a scientist who studied signals from space, not a soldier or a spy. But circumstances had thrust him into a situation where the fate of humanity might rest on his ability to get this alien woman to safety. The garage door slid open to reveal Marcus's personal helicopter, a modified civilian aircraft he'd learned to pilot during his years in remote research locations. It wasn't designed for combat or evasion, but it was fast and maneuverable in the mountain terrain. As he helped Zara into the passenger seat, she grabbed his arm with her good hand. "There is something else you must know," she said, her voice urgent. "The device I gave you, it is not just information storage. It is key to activate ancient defenses hidden on Earth." "What do you mean, ancient defenses?" "My people visited your world before, long ago, when your species was young. We saw potential, planted seeds of protection for future need. The key will awaken what sleeps." Marcus stared at her, his scientific worldview reshaping itself around these impossible revelations. "You're saying aliens visited Earth in ancient times? That there are dormant alien technologies hidden on our planet? Not alien to Earth anymore," Zara said with something that might have been a smile. "Partnership. My people believe in nurturing, not conquering. We guide species to strength, help them resist those who would destroy." The helicopter's rotors spun to life just as the first hegemony craft touched down outside the research station. Through the garage's windows, Marcus could see figures emerging from the alien vessels, tall, insectoid beings encased in dark armor that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. As they lifted off into the night sky, Marcus caught a glimpse of the hegemony soldiers breaching the research station below. Energy weapons carved through the building's walls like they were made of paper. Whatever these beings were, their technology was devastatingly advanced. "Where do we go?" Marcus shouted over the helicopter's noise. "North," Zara replied, consulting the crystal device. "Ancient site in your Arctic regions. There, we can activate first defense node, send warning to your governments, and to my people." As they climbed higher into the mountain air, pursued by alien craft whose capabilities Marcus could only guess at, he realized that his perspective on everything had fundamentally changed. Earth wasn't alone in the universe, and it wasn't safe. Humanity was about to face a threat beyond their comprehension. But they weren't completely helpless. The woman beside him represented hope, proof that not all advanced species were hostile, that allies existed among the stars. The question now was whether they could reach safety in time to warn the world and activate whatever ancient defenses lay hidden beneath Earth's surface. Behind them, the research station exploded in a pillar of blue fire, taking with it years of Marcus's work and any evidence of their brief presence. The hegemony was thorough in their destruction, leaving no trace for others to follow. Marcus gripped the helicopter's controls tighter and pushed the aircraft to its limits. Whatever happened next, there was no turning back. He was committed now to a path that would either save humanity or see him die trying. The crystal device in Zara's hands pulsed with increasing intensity as they flew north, as if responding to their proximity to something significant. In the distance, Marcus could see the lights of the nearest city, millions of people going about their lives in complete ignorance of the threat descending upon their world. Soon, if they succeeded, that ignorance would end. The question was whether humanity would prove strong enough to stand alongside their alien allies against the coming darkness. The helicopter cut through the pre-dawn darkness as Marcus pushed the aircraft northward, following Zara's increasingly urgent directions. Behind them, 3 hegemony pursuit craft maintained a steady distance, their sleek forms moving through the air with an unnatural fluidity that defied conventional aerodynamics. They weren't closing the gap, which worried Marcus more than if they had been actively attacking. "Why aren't they shooting us down?" he asked, adjusting course to follow a river valley that wound through the Canadian Rockies. Zara's luminescent patterns had dimmed considerably since their escape, and Marcus could see the strain of maintaining consciousness etched on her delicate features. "They want me alive," she said, her voice barely audible over the rotor noise. "Information I carry too valuable to risk destroying." "What kind of information?" "Everything," Zara replied, closing her eyes as another wave of pain washed over her. "Location of my homeworld, strength of our fleet, defensive capabilities of worlds we protect. If hegemony extracts this knowledge, they can plan attacks that will crush resistance before it begins." Marcus felt his stomach clench at the implications. Not only was Earth in danger, but Zara's capture could lead to the destruction of other worlds as well. The weight of cosmic responsibility pressed down on him as he navigated through increasingly treacherous mountain terrain. "The defense nodes," he said. "How do they work? What kind of ancient technology are we talking about?" Zara opened her eyes and studied the crystal device in her hands. Its pulsing had grown more rapid as they flew north, and Marcus could see symbols appearing and disappearing on its surface like text on a computer screen. "Your species calls us the Guardians, though few remember the old stories," she explained. 40,000 years ago, we visited Earth during your Ice Age. Humanity was young, but showed remarkable potential, not just for tool use or language, but for something rarer: cooperation across tribal boundaries, sacrifice for future generations. Marcus thought about the ancient myths and legends from cultures around the world, stories of beings from the sky who taught humanity agriculture, astronomy, and metallurgy. He'd always assumed they were metaphorical, but now he wondered how many were actually historical accounts. "We established monitoring stations across your planet," Zara continued, "hidden deep underground or beneath ice sheets. Each contained defensive systems that could activate if Earth faced extinction-level threats. The network was designed to grow stronger as humanity advanced, drawing power from your developing technology. And the crystal activates these defenses?" "More than that," Zara said, wincing as the helicopter hit turbulence. "It networks them together, coordinates response. But activation requires both Guardian and human genetic markers. I cannot do this alone." Marcus glanced at her, understanding dawning. "That's why you needed me specifically. Not just any human would work. Your DNA contains markers we implanted in certain bloodlines long ago. Not many carry them, but those who do can interface with Guardian technology. We have been monitoring, waiting for right moment to make contact." The pursuit behind them suddenly intensified. Energy beams lanced past the helicopter, close enough that Marcus could feel the heat through the cockpit glass. The hegemony had apparently grown impatient with their cat and mouse game. Defensive systems coming online, Marcus announced, flipping switches that activated the helicopter's limited countermeasures, chaff dispensers, and infrared flares designed to confuse missile guidance systems. Against alien technology, they might prove useless, but it was better than nothing. One of the pursuing craft accelerated, closing rapidly on their position. Marcus could see its weapon systems charging, a blue glow building along what appeared to be organic weapon pods. He banked hard to the left, diving toward a narrow canyon that cut through the mountain range. "Marcus," Zara said urgently, "we are close. 30 kilometers north of current position. There is a lake surrounded by glaciers. Beneath the ice lies first defense node. Can we reach it before they shoot us down?" Before Zara could answer, one of the hegemony craft opened fire. The energy beam carved a molten trench through the rock face beside them, sending avalanches of stone cascading into the canyon below. The alien weapons were devastatingly powerful, capable of literally melting mountain stone. Marcus pushed the helicopter to its absolute limits, the engine whining in protest as he demanded more speed and maneuverability than the aircraft was designed to provide. His years of experience flying in difficult conditions served him well as he wove between rock formations and used the terrain to break line of sight with their pursuers. "There," Zara said, pointing ahead to where the canyon opened into a broad valley. In the distance, Marcus could see the glimmer of water reflecting the first hints of dawnlight. The lake was surrounded by towering ice formations that looked like frozen waterfalls, creating a natural amphitheater of incredible beauty. But as they approached, Marcus could see they weren't alone. More hegemony craft were emerging from concealment among the ice formations, a full squadron that had been waiting in ambush. They'd been herded into a trap. "They knew where we were going," Marcus said grimly. "Impossible," Zara protested. "Location is protected by Guardian encryption." She stopped, her expression changing to one of horrified realization. Unless they already captured another Guardian. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. If the hegemony had already captured one of Zara's people, they could have extracted the information needed to predict her actions. This entire chase might have been orchestrated from the beginning. Energy beams crisscrossed the air around them as the ambush closed. Marcus dove toward the lake's surface, hoping to use the ice formations as cover, but the hegemony craft were faster and more maneuverable. One beam clipped the helicopter's tail rotor, sending them into a spinning descent that Marcus struggled to control. "We're going down," he announced, wrestling with controls that were becoming increasingly unresponsive. "Hold on." The helicopter hit the frozen lake's surface hard, skidding across the ice in a shower of sparks and debris before finally coming to rest against a massive ice formation. Marcus's head rang from the impact, but he was conscious and apparently uninjured. Beside him, Zara hung limply in her restraints, silver blood trickling from a new cut on her scalp. Hegemony craft circled overhead like mechanical vultures, but they weren't immediately landing. Marcus could see figures moving within the cockpits, tall, insectoid beings whose movements seemed unnaturally precise and coordinated. They were studying the crash site, probably scanning for life signs and potential threats. "Zara," Marcus whispered, gently shaking her shoulder. "We need to move." Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused but alive. "Device," she mumbled, fumbling for the crystal that had been thrown from her hands during the crash. "Must reach activation point." Marcus spotted the crystal several meters away, half buried in snow that had been thrown up by their landing. He carefully extracted himself from the wreckage, every movement measured to avoid attracting attention from the circling craft. The crystal was warm to the touch despite the frigid air, and its pulsing had become almost frantic. "Where exactly is the activation point?" he asked, helping Zara out of the helicopter. She looked around the frozen landscape, her enhanced senses apparently able to detect something Marcus couldn't perceive. "Center of lake," she said, directly below the ice. Node extends down into bedrock, but control interface is shallow. Marcus studied the expanse of ice stretching before them. The lake was roughly circular, perhaps 2 kilometers across, with no obvious landmarks to indicate its center. But as he watched, he began to notice something odd about the ice formation in the middle distance, a subtle difference in color and texture that suggested the ice might be thinner there. Above them, one of the hegemony craft finally began to descend, its landing systems extending like the legs of some enormous insect. Others maintained their circling pattern, apparently forming a perimeter to prevent escape. "We'll never make it across the open ice," Marcus said. "They'll cut us down before we get halfway." Zara struggled to her feet, leaning heavily against the helicopter's wreckage. Her symbiont patterns were barely visible now, flickering weakly like dying embers. "Guardian technology responds to genetic markers," she said. "If you can reach center point with device, I can guide activation from here. What about you? I'm not leaving you for those things." "I'm already lost," Zara said with quiet dignity. "But Earth can still be saved. My sacrifice means nothing if warning is not sent." Marcus looked from her determined face to the alien soldiers now emerging from their landed craft. They moved with predatory grace, their dark armor reflecting no light despite the brightening dawn. Each carried weapons that hummed with barely contained energy, and their helmeted heads turned in perfect unison as they began to advance across the ice. "There has to be another way," Marcus insisted. Zara gripped his arm with surprising strength. "Listen to me carefully. When you activate Node, it will send signal to other defense stations worldwide. Your governments will receive data package containing everything they need to prepare for invasion. But more importantly, signal will reach my people in outer system. Rescue fleet will come." The advancing hegemony soldiers were halfway across the ice now, moving in a coordinated formation that spoke of military precision. Marcus estimated he had perhaps 2 minutes before they reached the crash site. "How do I activate it?" "Place device on ice above central node. Your genetic markers will be recognized. Interface will emerge. Follow instinctive commands. Guardian technology is designed to work symbiotically with human consciousness." Marcus took a deep breath and looked across the ice field to the distant center point. It was perhaps 800 meters away, across perfectly flat terrain with no cover whatsoever. The hegemony soldiers would have clear shots at him for the entire distance. "I wish there was more time," he said to Zara, "to understand what this all means, to prepare properly." "Time is luxury we do not have," she replied. "But know this, when you activate Defense Node, you will not just be saving Earth. You will be joining larger community of species that choose cooperation over conquest. Humanity will no longer be alone." The sound of energy weapons powering up echoed across the frozen landscape. Marcus could see the lead hegemony soldier raising its weapon, targeting systems probably already locked onto the helicopter wreckage. "Go," Zara said firmly. "Run." Marcus sprinted out from behind the helicopter just as the first energy beam struck. The wreckage erupted in flames behind him, but Zara had already moved, using her remaining strength to seek cover among the ice formations. Her sacrifice would buy him precious seconds, but no more. He ran across the ice with desperate abandon, his boots struggling for purchase on the slick surface. Behind him, he could hear the distinctive whine of alien weapons tracking his movement. Energy beams began striking the ice around him, sending up explosions of steam and flash-melted water that created an eerie fog across the battlefield. The center of the lake seemed impossibly far away, and Marcus could feel his lungs burning in the thin mountain air. Each breath came harder than the last, but he pushed forward, driven by the knowledge that millions of lives hung in the balance. Halfway across, his luck ran out. An energy beam struck the ice directly in front of him, creating a crater that sent him tumbling forward. The crystal device flew from his hands, skittering across the ice toward the very center of the lake. As Marcus scrambled to his feet, he could see that the beam had actually done him a favor. It had revealed something beneath the ice. Where the surface had been melted away, Marcus could see metal structures embedded in the ice, geometric patterns that matched the symbols on Zara's ship and on the crystal device. The defense node was real, and it was massive. The structures extended down into the dark water below, forming what appeared to be a vast underground complex. He reached the crystal just as another barrage of energy beams began striking around him. The device was warm enough to melt the ice beneath it, and as Marcus picked it up, he could see that they were standing directly over the central hub of the Guardian facility. Following Zara's instructions, he pressed the crystal against the ice. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the device began to sink into the frozen surface as if the ice were liquid. Where it touched, the surface began to glow with the same blue light that had marked Zara's ship. The effect spread outward in concentric circles, and Marcus could feel a vibration building beneath his feet. The entire lake was responding to the activation sequence, ice formations beginning to shift and realign themselves according to some ancient pattern. Then, the interface emerged. It rose from the ice like a flower blooming in fast forward, a complex structure of what appeared to be living crystal and metal, forming a control console that perfectly accommodated Marcus's human proportions. As his hands made contact with the interface, information flooded his mind. He could see the global defense network as if from orbit, dozens of nodes scattered across Earth's continents, each connected to the others through quantum entanglement that transcended normal space-time limitations. He could sense the massive energy sources buried beneath mountain ranges and ocean floors, drawing power from Earth's magnetic field and geothermal activity. Most importantly, he could feel the network reaching out into space, seeking the Guardian fleet that waited in the outer solar system for this very signal. The hegemony soldiers had stopped their advance, apparently recognizing that the situation had fundamentally changed. Their weapons remained trained on Marcus, but they seemed uncertain whether attacking him now would be strategically wise. Through the interface, Marcus began to understand why. The activation of the defense node had triggered automatic responses throughout the network. Military installations around the world were receiving encrypted data packages that would give Earth's armed forces critical intelligence about hegemony tactics and technology. Space agencies were being alerted to the alien presence in the solar system. And, most crucially, the signal was racing outward at faster-than-light speeds, calling the Guardian fleet home. But the system demanded more from Marcus than just activation. It wanted integration, a permanent fusion between human and Guardian technology that would allow Earth to take its place as a defended world in the galactic community. The choice was his to make, but once made, it could never be undone. Through the interface, Marcus could sense Zara's presence despite the distance between them. She was still alive, still fighting, but her time was running short. The hegemony soldiers near the helicopter were closing in on her position, and her injuries made effective resistance nearly impossible. Marcus made his choice. He opened his mind fully to the Guardian interface, accepting the symbiosis that would change him forever. The patterns that had marked Zara's skin began to appear on his own arms, the symbiont network establishing itself in his nervous system and connecting him permanently to the defense grid. The sensation was indescribable, like suddenly being able to see colors that had never existed before or hear music in mathematical equations. Marcus felt his consciousness expand beyond his individual identity, becoming part of something vast and ancient and benevolent. And through that expanded awareness, he finally understood what Zara had meant when she said he was the one being saved. The defense network wasn't just about protecting Earth from the hegemony invasion. It was about elevating humanity to a new level of existence, preparing them for membership in a galactic civilization that spanned thousands of worlds and millions of species. The Guardian species had been watching and waiting for 40,000 years for humanity to reach the point where this transformation was possible. Marcus wasn't just activating Earth's defenses. He was accepting humanity's inheritance among the stars. The symbiont patterns on his arms blazed with brilliant light as the transformation completed itself. Through the network, he could feel the Guardian fleet altering course, racing toward Earth at speeds that would bring them within the solar system in mere hours. He could sense the other defense nodes coming online worldwide, their ancient systems stirring to life after millennia of dormancy. But most immediately, he could feel the local defense systems responding to his presence. The ice beneath his feet was shifting, revealing weapon emplacements that had been hidden for thousands of years. Energy projectors emerged from concealment among the ice formations, their targeting systems locking onto the hegemony craft that still circled overhead. The aliens had perhaps seconds to realize their situation had changed before the Guardian weapons opened fire. The energy beams that lanced upward from the ice were unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Not the raw destructive force of the hegemony weapons, but something more elegant and precise. The alien craft didn't explode. They simply ceased to exist, their matter converted to energy so efficiently that there wasn't even debris left behind. In the sudden silence that followed, Marcus could hear Zara calling his name across the ice field. She was alive, and through their shared connection to the Guardian network, he could sense her relief and pride at what he had accomplished. But their victory was only the beginning. The main hegemony fleet was still weeks away, and activating Earth defenses was just the first step in what would be a challenging integration into galactic civilization. As Marcus walked back across the ice toward Zara, the symbiont patterns on his skin pulsing in harmony with hers, he realized that everything in his life had led to this moment. His work studying signals from space, his isolation at the remote research station, even his decision to drive home during the storm that night. All of it had been orchestrated by forces he was only beginning to understand. He had thought he was rescuing an alien woman in distress. Instead, she had been guiding him toward humanity's destiny among the stars. The transformation had changed Marcus in ways he was still discovering. As he approached Zara across the frozen lake, he could perceive the world through entirely new senses. The Guardian symbiont network had integrated seamlessly with his nervous system, creating connections that allowed him to interface directly with the ancient technology buried beneath Earth's surface. Through this enhanced perception, he could see Zara's true condition. The silver blood that marked her species glowed with bioluminescent patterns that indicated her injury status, stress levels, and even her emotional state. Her relief at his successful activation of the defense node was visible as warm golden spirals along her neural pathways, while the pain from her injuries appeared as sharp red discontinuities in the flow. The integration was successful, Zara said as he reached her side. She no longer needed to speak aloud. Their shared connection to the Guardian network allowed direct, mind-to-mind communication, but she seemed to prefer verbal speech for the comfort it provided. I can sense the awakening across your world. 23 defense nodes responding to your genetic signature. Marcus helped her to her feet, his enhanced strength making her weight negligible. The symbiont patterns on his skin provided him with detailed information about optimal support points for her injuries, allowing him to assist her without causing additional damage. "How long do we have before the hegemony main fleet arrives?" he asked. 3 weeks, perhaps 4 if they choose caution over speed, Zara replied. But that assumes they maintain current trajectory. Now that first defense node is active, they may accelerate timeline. Through the network, Marcus could sense the cascade of activity his activation had triggered worldwide. Military commanders in dozens of countries were receiving encrypted data packets that contained detailed intelligence about hegemony technology, tactics, and weaknesses. The information was being corroborated by satellite observations of the alien scout ships that had been operating in Earth's solar system for months. But the human response was chaotic and uncoordinated. Some governments were mobilizing their armed forces, while others were attempting to establish communication protocols with what they assumed were hostile alien invaders. A few were even preparing to surrender rather than risk total annihilation. "Your species needs guidance," Zara observed, following his thoughts through their shared connection. Guardian protocols include provision for rapid technological advancement in crisis situations, but implementation requires careful coordination. What kind of technological advancement? Marcus asked as they walked toward the edge of the lake where the ice met solid ground. The destroyed hegemony craft had left no trace of their existence, but Marcus could sense other alien forces moving in the distance, converging on their location. Energy weapons, defensive shields, faster-than-light communication systems, Zara explained. Technologies that will allow Earth to stand as equal partner with Guardian worlds rather than protected primitive territory. The implications were staggering. Humanity was about to experience a technological revolution that would compress centuries of normal development into mere weeks. But such rapid advancement carried enormous risks: social upheaval, economic collapse, the potential for the new technologies to be used for destructive rather than defensive purposes. How many other worlds have gone through this process? Marcus asked. 47 successful integrations over past 100,000 years, Zara replied. 3 failures where species could not adapt quickly enough to threat environment. Marcus didn't need to ask what had happened to those 3 failed worlds. He could sense the answer through their connection: complete destruction by hegemony forces, their populations enslaved or eliminated entirely. The Guardian fleet, he said, changing the subject to something more hopeful. When will they arrive? Admiral Kestar's battle group will reach Earth orbit in 18 hours, Zara said. But they represent only advanced reconnaissance force. Main Guardian fleet is still 6 days away, traveling from staging area in Centauri system. 18 hours. Marcus tried to imagine how the world would react to the arrival of an alien fleet, even a friendly one. The panic, the confusion, the desperate attempts by various governments to control the situation. It would be chaos on a global scale. There has to be a way to prepare people for this, he said. Some kind of announcement, explanation of what's happening. Already in progress, Zara assured him. Guardian diplomatic protocols include provision for gradual disclosure through established human communication networks. Your world leaders are receiving briefing materials that will help them explain situation to populations. As they reached the shoreline, Marcus became aware of movement in the surrounding mountains. His enhanced senses could detect aircraft approaching from multiple directions, human military forces responding to the energy signatures from the battle at the lake. But mixed among the human signatures were others, distinctly alien, that set off warning indicators in his Guardian enhanced awareness. More hegemony scouts, he said grimly. Confirmed, Zara replied. They are establishing perimeter around lake, preventing human forces from reaching us. Standard containment protocol while they analyze what occurred here. Through the defense network, Marcus could observe the tactical situation from multiple angles. Hegemony forces had positioned themselves strategically throughout the mountain range, creating an effective blockade that would prevent human rescue attempts while allowing the aliens to study the activated Guardian technology. But the activation had given Marcus capabilities he was still learning to use. The symbiont network connected him not just to the defense nodes, but to every piece of Guardian technology on the planet. That included backup systems and emergency protocols that had been dormant for millennia. Zura, he said, what would happen if I activated multiple defense nodes simultaneously? She looked at him with alarm. Network is designed for sequential activation to prevent system overload. Simultaneous activation of more than 3 nodes could destabilize planetary energy grid, cause catastrophic geological events. But it would also create a coordinated defense field, Marcus said, working through the tactical implications via his enhanced connection to the network. Something powerful enough to clear hegemony forces from the entire solar system, at cost of potentially destroying Earth's biosphere, Zara countered. Guardian protocols strictly forbid simultaneous activation, except in planetary extinction scenarios. Marcus paused, considering their options. The hegemony forces surrounding them were too numerous and well-equipped to fight directly. Human military forces were powerful by Earth standards, but completely outclassed by alien technology. And even when the Guardian Advanced Fleet arrived, they would face a tactical situation where any aggressive action might result in significant human casualties. But there was another option, one that his Guardian-enhanced awareness was beginning to reveal. The defense network wasn't just about weapons and shields, it was also about transformation. Each node contained biotechnology that could rapidly evolve human capabilities, creating a population that could defend itself on equal terms with any alien threat. The enhancement protocols, he said to Zara, could they be applied on a global scale? Zara's expression grew troubled. Theoretically possible, but extremely dangerous. Genetic modification technology designed for gradual implementation over generations. Attempting to enhance entire human populations simultaneously could cause biological catastrophe. But if it worked, humanity would become something new, Zara admitted. Stronger, faster, more intelligent, capable of interfacing directly with advanced technology, of surviving in hostile environments that would kill baseline humans. But you would no longer be the same species that evolved on Earth. The choice that Marcus faced was staggering in its implications. He could potentially transform all of humanity in a matter of hours, giving his species the tools they needed to stand as equals among the galactic community. But the risks were enormous, and the changes would be irreversible. Through the defense network, he could sense the approaching conflict escalating. Hegemony forces were moving into attack positions around the lake, preparing to assault the activated Guardian site with overwhelming firepower. Human aircraft were attempting to penetrate the alien perimeter, but they were being systematically destroyed by weapons that could slice through military-grade armor like paper. "We need to make a decision," Marcus said. "The situation is deteriorating rapidly." Before Zara could respond, a new presence entered Marcus's awareness through the network, something vast and ancient that had been dormant in the deepest levels of the Guardian system. As his enhanced senses probed deeper into the planetary defense grid, he realized that Earth held secrets that even Zara didn't fully understand. "There's something else," he said, his voice filled with awe. "Something much older than the nodes we activated." Zara's own connection to the network had been restored enough for her to follow his investigation. What they discovered together changed everything they thought they knew about Earth's history. The Guardian Defense Network wasn't the oldest alien presence on the planet. Deep beneath the ocean floors and in the heart of mountain ranges, much older structures were hidden, artifacts of a civilization that had preceded both humanity and the Guardians by millions of years. "The predecessors," Zara whispered, her face pale with shock. "I thought they were extinct. Their technology was lost when their empire fell." "Not lost," Marcus said, following data streams that revealed the true scope of what lay hidden beneath Earth's surface. Preserved. Earth wasn't just a Guardian colony. It was a predecessor archive world, a repository for their most advanced technologies. The implications were staggering. The predecessors had been a civilization of unimaginable advancement, capable of manipulating matter and energy on scales that dwarfed even the Guardian and hegemony technologies. Their disappearance millions of years ago had been one of the great mysteries of galactic history, and their greatest treasures were buried beneath the planet that had given birth to humanity. "The genetic markers," Marcus said, understanding beginning to dawn. "The human bloodlines that can interface with Guardian technology, they're not just Guardian modifications. Their predecessor legacy code." "Your species," Zara said, her voice filled with wonder, "are their chosen successors, not just to the Guardian defensive network, but to the entire predecessor technological inheritance." Through the network, Marcus could sense the hegemony forces beginning their final assault on the lake position. Energy weapons were charging, ground troops advancing under cover of orbital bombardment that would begin in minutes. But he could also sense something else, the predecessor archives responding to his genetic signature, awakening systems that had slept for eons. "I can access it," he said, his hands moving toward the Guardian interface that still protruded from the ice. "The predecessor technology. But I don't know what will happen if I do." "Unknown risks," Zara agreed. "Predecessor technology operates on scales beyond current understanding. Activation could transform not just Earth, but entire solar system. Changes would be visible from other galaxies." Marcus looked across the lake to where energy beams were beginning to lance down from orbit, melting massive sections of ice and rock. Human aircraft were falling from the sky in burning fragments as the hegemony demonstrated the futility of conventional resistance. In 18 hours, the Guardian Advance Fleet would arrive to find either a liberated Earth ready to take its place among the galactic community or smoking ruin where humanity had once lived. The choice isn't really mine to make, Marcus said, placing his hands on the interface. It belongs to all of humanity. But we're out of time for democratic deliberation. Through the network, he began broadcasting a signal that would reach every human on Earth. Not through conventional communication systems, but directly to the genetic markers that the Guardians and predecessors had left dormant in human DNA. Every person carrying the legacy bloodlines would sense his message, understand the choice that faced their species. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Millions of humans around the world felt the awakening of abilities they never knew they possessed, connection to a network of consciousness that transcended individual identity. And through that network, they voted. The decision was unanimous. Marcus opened his mind fully to the predecessor archives, accepting not just the Guardian symbiosis, but the much deeper transformation that would make humanity the inheritors of technologies beyond current imagination. The changes began immediately, cascading through the defense network and spreading to every corner of the planet. But unlike the controlled enhancement protocols he had initially considered, this transformation was guided by the combined will of millions of human minds linked through the predecessor legacy code. Instead of changing humanity into something alien, the technology adapted itself to enhance what was uniquely human. The capacity for cooperation across vast differences, the ability to sacrifice individual advantage for species survival, the tendency to protect the weak rather than exploit them. As the transformation completed itself, Marcus felt his consciousness expand to encompass not just his individual identity, but the collective awareness of humanity itself. He was still himself, but he was also something greater, a node in a network that included every enhanced human on Earth. Through this expanded awareness, he could sense the hegemony forces realizing that their situation had fundamentally changed. The planet they had been preparing to conquer was now radiating energy signatures that exceeded their most advanced technologies. Earth had become something they couldn't understand or control. And, approaching from the outer solar system, the Guardian Advance Fleet was detecting readings that indicated humanity had somehow achieved in hours what most species require millennia to accomplish. Marcus looked at Zura, who was staring at him with a mixture of pride and amazement. The symbiont patterns on her skin were blazing with excited recognition signals as she realized what humanity had become. "Welcome to the galactic community," she said softly. As equals, above them, the first predecessor defense platforms were emerging from hiding places deep beneath the planet's crust, their weapons systems targeting the fleeing hegemony craft with precision that made conventional targeting obsolete. The orbital bombardment ceased immediately as the alien forces retreated beyond the range of technologies that could track them across interstellar distances. Humanity was no longer alone, and they were no longer vulnerable. But as Marcus looked up at the stars through his enhanced vision, he realized that their greatest challenges still lay ahead. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders and dangers that he was only beginning to understand. Earth's transformation had made them powerful, but power without wisdom was a path to the same destruction that had claimed countless civilizations before them. Through the network, he could sense his fellow humans around the world coming to the same realization. They had inherited incredible capabilities, but they had also inherited the responsibility to use them wisely. The real test of humanity's worthiness would come not in defending against invasion, but in deciding what kind of galactic civilization they wanted to help create. 6 months after the Great Awakening, as historians had begun calling humanity's transformation, Marcus stood in the observation deck of the Earth Defense Command Center that had been constructed in orbit above the planet. Through the transparent aluminum walls, he could see the bustling activity of what had become the busiest spaceport in the local galactic sector. Guardian vessels moved in graceful formations alongside newly constructed human ships that incorporated both predecessor and Guardian technologies. Merchant fleets from dozens of worlds brought trade goods and cultural exchanges to Earth, while human exploration vessels departed daily for distant star systems. The isolation that had defined humanity for its entire history was now a memory. But the changes ran much deeper than mere technological advancement. Through the enhanced network that connected all transformed humans, Marcus could sense the collective consciousness of his species as they grappled with questions that would have seemed like science fiction just months ago. How should they interact with species that had vastly different ethical systems? What responsibilities did their newfound power bring? How could they maintain their essential humanity while adapting to a cosmos that operated on scales beyond individual comprehension? The Council of Worlds has reached a decision regarding the hegemony situation, Zara said, approaching Marcus across the observation deck. Her injuries had long since healed, and the silver patterns beneath her skin now pulsed in harmony with the blue-white designs that marked Marcus's enhancement. Their connection through the network had deepened over the months, becoming something that transcended the romantic relationships Marcus had known before the transformation. Marcus turned to face her, his enhanced awareness automatically processing the emotional undertones in her bioluminescent patterns. The decision had not been easy, and Zara carried the weight of representing humanity in galactic politics that involved thousands of worlds and millions of species. "They voted to accept our proposal?" he asked. "Unanimously," Zara confirmed. "Operation Liberation will commence in 72 hours. The proposal had been Marcus's idea, developed through countless hours of consultation with the enhanced human collective and their new alien allies. Rather than simply defending Earth and leaving the hegemony to continue terrorizing other worlds, humanity would lead a coordinated strike against the alien empire's core systems. It was an ambitious plan that would either free dozens of enslaved species or result in humanity's first major defeat since joining the galactic community. The Guardian High Command was initially reluctant, Zara continued, but Admiral Kestar convinced them that humanity's unique psychological profile makes us ideally suited for this type of operation. Marcus nodded, understanding the implications. Most species that achieved advanced technology tended toward either pure rationality or aggressive expansion. Humanity's tendency toward empathetic cooperation, combined with their willingness to take risks for the benefit of others, created a tactical approach that the hegemony wasn't equipped to counter. Through the network, Marcus could sense the preparations taking place across human space. The transformation had not just enhanced individual humans. It had fundamentally altered human civilization. Traditional national boundaries had become largely irrelevant as enhanced humans found themselves thinking in terms of species-wide priorities rather than tribal loyalties. The military forces being assembled for Operation Liberation represented every nation on Earth, but they operated with a coordination that would have been impossible before the enhancement. Each soldier, pilot, and commander was connected through the network, allowing for tactical coordination that exceeded anything achievable through conventional command structures. The predecessor archives have provided us with intelligence on hegemony core systems, Marcus said, reviewing data streams that flowed directly into his consciousness. But there are still significant unknowns. We're essentially conducting the first major military operation in galactic history where one side is using predecessor-level technology. That uncertainty works in our favor, Zara replied. Hegemony tactical doctrine is based on overwhelming technological superiority. They have no experience fighting opponents who can match their capabilities. Marcus walked to the center of the observation deck, where a holographic display showed real-time positions of allied fleets throughout the local galactic region. Human ships appeared as blue icons, Guardian vessels as gold, and the growing number of liberated worlds that had joined their alliance as green. The hegemony territories showed as red, a vast empire that had grown through conquest and enslavement for over 50,000 years. The Viridian system, Marcus said, highlighting one of the red zones with a gesture. That's where their command hierarchy is based. Primary Military Coordination Center, Zara confirmed. Destroy that facility and entire hegemony fleet structure becomes uncoordinated. Individual battle groups will continue fighting, but strategic coordination will be impossible. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Rather than attempting to defeat the hegemony through conventional warfare, which would have resulted in countless casualties on both sides, the Allied forces would strike simultaneously at critical infrastructure targets throughout the empire. Command centers, shipyards, communication relays, and logistical hubs would be eliminated in a coordinated assault that would cripple the hegemony's ability to maintain control over their enslaved territories. But the operation's success depended on humanity's unique capabilities. The predecessor technology that humans could access allowed for faster-than-light travel and communication that operated on principles the hegemony couldn't detect or counter. Human strike teams could appear anywhere in the galaxy with virtually no warning, complete their objectives, and disappear before conventional defenses could respond. Personal concern, Zara said, her patterns shifting to frequencies that Marcus had learned to recognize as deep worry. The enhancement network allows remarkable tactical coordination, but it also creates psychological vulnerabilities we do not fully understand. Marcus knew what she meant. The collective consciousness that connected enhanced humans was their greatest strength, but it also meant that trauma or loss experienced by one individual could potentially affect the entire network. If the operation went badly, the psychological damage could cascade through the human population, potentially causing a civilizational breakdown. We've established isolation protocols, Marcus assured her. Combat teams will be partially disconnected from the main network during operations. They'll maintain tactical coordination with each other, but emotional trauma won't propagate back to Earth. Theory untested in actual combat conditions, Zara pointed out. Human psychology under predecessor enhancement remains largely unknown territory. It was true, and it was one of many uncertainties they would have to accept. Humanity had gained incredible power in a very short time, but they were still learning how to use it responsibly. Every decision carried the potential for unintended consequences that could affect not just Earth, but the entire galactic community. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority communication. Marcus opened his awareness to the network, allowing the message to flow directly into his consciousness. It was from Admiral Sarah Chun, the human commander who would be leading Operation Liberation. Final fleet briefing in 30 minutes. The Admiral's thoughts conveyed with military precision. All strike team commanders to report to Flag Command for mission synchronization. Marcus had been selected to lead one of the human strike teams, a role that combined his unique access to predecessor technology with his scientific training and his symbolic importance as the first human to achieve full enhancement. It was a responsibility he didn't take lightly. "I should go," he said to Zara. "I know," she replied, but her patterns showed reluctance to let him leave. Their relationship had become something beyond human categories, a melding of consciousness that created new forms of intimacy while maintaining individual identity. The thought of separation during combat operations was deeply unsettling to both of them. "The network will maintain our connection," Marcus said gently. "Distance becomes irrelevant when consciousness can transcend physical space. Physical death remains relevant," Zara pointed out with stark honesty. Predecessor enhancement protects against many forms of damage, but hegemony weapons are specifically designed to disrupt biological systems. If you are killed during operation, network connection will not preserve your consciousness. Marcus took her hands in his, feeling the warmth of her bioluminescent patterns through his enhanced senses. "If I don't take these risks, how many other worlds will fall to the hegemony? How many species will be enslaved or wiped out while we debate safer alternatives? It was the fundamental question that humanity faced as a newly enhanced species. Their power gave them the ability to protect others, but it also created the moral obligation to do so. Isolating themselves on Earth while other civilizations suffered would be a betrayal of the principles that had made their enhancement possible in the first place. Guardian philosophy emphasizes protection through deterrence, Zara said. Demonstrate superior power, establish defensive perimeters, wait for aggressors to seek alternative targets. Human philosophy emphasizes protection through intervention, Marcus replied. Confront threats before they can harm the innocent. Accept personal risk to prevent greater suffering. It was one of the key differences between humanity and most other species they had encountered. The Guardian approach was logical and sustainable, but it accepted that some civilizations would inevitably fall to aggressive empires like the hegemony. The human approach was more dangerous and potentially self-destructive, but it refused to accept unnecessary suffering as an inevitable part of galactic politics. Which approach proves superior may determine future of galactic civilization, Zara observed. Marcus squeezed her hands gently before releasing them. Then, we'd better make sure this works. The journey to Flag Command took Marcus through sections of the orbital station that showcased the remarkable changes humanity had undergone. Enhanced humans worked alongside Guardian engineers and recently liberated refugees from a dozen worlds, collaborating on technologies that would have been incomprehensible just months ago. Children who had been born since the enhancement displayed capabilities that exceeded their transformed parents, leading researchers to conclude that humanity's evolution was accelerating rather than stabilizing. These children could interface with predecessor technology at an intuitive level, manipulating matter and energy through direct mental contact with ancient systems. But, more importantly, they seemed to retain humanity's essential compassionate nature while gaining abilities that approached what earlier generations would have considered godlike. If Operation Liberation succeeded, these children would grow up in a galaxy where cooperation replaced conquest as the dominant form of interstellar politics. Flag Command occupied the central sphere of the orbital station, a chamber designed to accommodate the neural interface requirements of enhanced humans conducting large-scale military operations. Admiral Chun stood at the center of a holographic display that showed the current positions of all Allied forces. Her awareness extended through the network to encompass tactical data from across the galaxy. Final intelligence update, Admiral Chun announced as the strike team commanders assembled around her. Hegemony forces have detected increased Allied activity in border regions, but they appear to be interpreting it as defensive posturing rather than preparation for offensive operations. Marcus allowed his consciousness to merge with the tactical display, experiencing the current galactic situation from a command perspective. The scale was staggering. Millions of ships spread across thousands of star systems, representing the largest military operation in galactic history. Human strike teams will initiate Phase 1 by eliminating communication relays in 17 target systems, Admiral Chen continued. This will prevent hegemony forces from coordinating responses to subsequent phases. Guardian and Allied fleets will then move to secure liberated territories while human forces proceed to Phase 2 objectives. The plan called for human forces to penetrate deep into hegemony territory, while their allies secured the outer regions. It was a strategy that maximized humanity's technological advantages while minimizing the risk to less advanced allied species. Commander Chun, Admiral Chun said, addressing Marcus directly through the network. Your team's objective is the Viridian Command Center. This facility coordinates hegemony military operations across 3 galactic sectors. Its destruction will effectively blind their strategic planning capabilities. Marcus acknowledged the assignment, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over him. The Viridian system was the most heavily defended target in the entire operation, protected by weapons platforms that could theoretically destroy entire star systems. Success would require perfect execution and more than a little luck. Time to jump point. 47 minutes, Admiral Chin announced. All teams begin final preparation sequences. Marcus made his way to the departure bay, where his strike team was conducting final equipment checks. The 12 men and women under his command represented the finest soldiers humanity had produced since the enhancement, each one capable of operating independently in hostile environments that would kill unenhanced humans instantly. Their ship was a marvel of hybrid technology, a human design that incorporated both Guardian defensive systems and predecessor propulsion capabilities. It could cross galactic distances in hours while remaining completely undetectable to conventional sensors. Final systems check complete, reported Lieutenant Martinez, his second-in-command. All team members ready for departure. Marcus took his position in the command chair, feeling the ship's systems integrate with his enhanced consciousness. Through the predecessor interface, he could perceive space-time as a navigable medium rather than an empty void. Their destination in the Viridian system was simultaneously impossibly distant and immediately accessible. Fleet Command, this is Strike Team 7. Marcus communicated through the network. Ready for jump. All teams report ready. Admiral Chin responded. Operation Liberation is authorized. Good hunting. The transition to faster-than-light travel through predecessor technology was unlike anything human science had previously imagined. Rather than moving through normal space-time, the ship briefly existed in a higher dimensional framework where distance became a choice rather than an obstacle. They emerged from the jump at the edge of the Viridian system, their sensors immediately detecting the massive defensive installations that protected the Hegemony Command Center. The facility itself was built into an asteroid that had been hollowed out and reinforced with materials that could withstand direct hits from stellar-grade weapons. Initiating stealth approach, Marcus announced to his team, "Remember, we have exactly 18 minutes from initial penetration to mission completion. After that, Hegemony reinforcements will make extraction impossible." The ship moved silently through the asteroid field that concealed the command center, its predecessor-enhanced hull perfectly mimicking the electromagnetic signature of natural space debris. Advanced Hegemony sensors detected nothing unusual as they approached their target. But as they drew closer to the command facility, Marcus began to sense something unexpected through his connection to the predecessor network. The installation wasn't just a military command center. It contained something much older and more significant. Commander, Lieutenant Martinez said, her enhanced senses detecting the same anomaly. There are predecessor artifacts inside that facility. Active ones. Marcus felt his blood chill as the implications became clear. The Hegemony hadn't just been using the asteroid as a convenient location for their command center. They had been studying and possibly attempting to reverse engineer predecessor technology. If they had succeeded in understanding even a fraction of that ancient knowledge, it could completely change the tactical situation. Worse, if Operation Liberation failed and the Hegemony retained access to predecessor artifacts, they could potentially use that technology to threaten not just the Allied forces, but every civilized world in the galaxy. Change of mission parameters. Marcus announced to his team, "We're not just destroying the command center. We're securing any predecessor artifacts before they can be used against us." The risks had just increased exponentially, but so had the potential consequences of failure. As Marcus guided their ship toward the heavily fortified installation, he realized that this mission might determine not just the outcome of Operation Liberation, but the future balance of power in the entire galaxy. Through the network, he could sense similar discoveries being made by other strike teams throughout Hegemony space. The enemy had been far more prepared for this conflict than anyone had realized, and humanity's technological advantages might not be as decisive as they had hoped. But there was no turning back now. The liberation of the galaxy had begun, and Marcus and his team would see it through to whatever end awaited them in the depths of the Hegemony's most secret stronghold. As energy weapons began firing from the asteroid's defensive platforms, Marcus realized that he was about to discover whether humanity's compassionate nature was compatible with the harsh realities of galactic warfare, or whether the universe would force them to become something darker than they had ever imagined possible.